And I think it was important to hit the record button right then and there because this might be the first time in FK history that all three of us have finished our writing before the show. Because that usually doesn't happen.
I think it depends on what you mean by finished the writing in air quotes.
Oh, no.
Right? Like, I put my pencil down, but, you know, once the light goes on, anything is game as to what I might actually say.
Oh, yeah, that's maybe pulling the curtain back a bit. Like, we have notes. We always usually have notes on the show.
Always usually write things.
Yeah. But like sometimes those things are changed or scrapped altogether at the last minute. It's just what we do here on the Fairly KickAss podcast. And I would say welcome to 2025, but this is like our fourth show of the year so far. So
it's the first thing where we're talking about the music of this year, though.
That is true. And in a way, this is the official FK beginning of the year 2025.
For what that's worth. This is Zach. You got Dan. You got Jay. And you got all three of us for the next as long as we decide to bloviate for. As Zach decides to try to make us throw up by moving his camera all over the place.
Sorry. It wasn't working for me where it was. I've got a new setup here, and it's just... There we go. I'm just going to go off video while I continue to adjust to avoid the potential vertigo in my co-host.
It's fine. I'm just messing with you.
We got reviews. Remember those? It has been a hot minute since we've done a review.
It has. Well, you know, as is per the norm, once we hit Thanksgiving, the album releases and singles releases tend to get taken over by the Christmas goblins, and we don't really get to talk about any new music until January hits. And of course, that's where we are now. So fun.
It's a circle of tunes.
Yeah.
As it were.
I thought about singing, but I figured that was probably for the best.
I did the same.
I also did the same. It's like one of us is going to, and then
Aaron Tagerton, I am not.
True. Very true. But what you are is someone who experienced the music of January 2025. And what do you think about it?
Boy, did I experience it. How to describe? I'm for against it. I feel like there was enough good to make me happy, but also a whole lot of meh, and one or two that I would rather not discuss at all.
Very fair. I'm looking forward to not hearing anything about those.
Perfect.
Dan, how about the top 40 on your side, the newly charting singles? Would you agree with the for against it?
Actually, kind of. There was definitely a theme for the month, and as opposed to the end of last year, 2025 started with a simple phrase. It's fine. A good chunk of the month was like Bad Bunny's new record, and it's pretty good. My main issue with that thing is that it kind of loses its way a bit, and there's a chunk of it that really, really blends together and gets very repetitive. So there's an album review from me, but you know, it wasn't bad at all. I enjoyed the stuff that was different there. Yeah, that's not everything, but there's that. Like I said, there's that segment, but really just like, okay. Aside from the top of the list, I'll put it that way. The top of the list is good, and everything else was. It happened. And we have evidence that it happened.
So not only right off the bat did we get an album review from Dan, but we also got a foreshadow from Dan. So you're already winning the 2025 reviews, my friend. You're killing it.
Don't worry, I will blow my early lead before we get out of the first quarter.
Well, I think that at least for me, compared to the two of you, or maybe more to Dan's end, like I thought the top, specifically my top two albums, were absolutely fabulous. There were some good across the board as well. Didn't really find a lot of terrible, which is a good thing. So so far January working well for me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm definitely not mad at it. My top, I would even say my top three, I am perfectly happy with.
Nice.
the ones that were bad, I knew were going to be bad. Like, it wasn't like it came as a surprise. It was like, oh, I saw that on the list and I went, okay.
So it's good to have that in the back of your head when you're going through all these things with that knowledge that, all right, I only have to put so much effort into this because no matter what happens, this is going to suck.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this album's going to be terrible, and Lil Baby, and this other album's going to be terrible. Like you just know. You don't have to wonder. You don't have to wonder.
Yeah.
But let's go to the very bottom, Jay, of your top 3. Hit us with your number 3 of January 2025.
I can do that. My number 3. So my number 3 actually comes from an artist who is an astonishingly good musician, vocalist, all that, despite having a fairly intense disability when it comes to her instrument. Hang on, I had to pull this up because I can't ever remember what it's called, but she was born. Okay, there it is. She was born with amniotic band syndrome, which means there was stuff in utero that was wrapped around her appendages. So she was born without a right hand and is an absolutely astonishingly good pianist. So yeah, get your head shake in there. Her name is Victoria Canal, and she just dropped a record called Slowly It Dawns, and it's beautiful. I wasn't sure what to expect. I had heard her work with Michael Franti before this, and I expected more of that kind of, contemporary pop songwriting type stuff that would have just blown right through one ear, not the other, to be perfectly honest. And that's not what happened. I was very impressed by what she was able to accomplish on this record. Compared to her previous work, it's a little more, she's only ever had EPs before this. This is her first full length LP by herself. And she talks a lot about, or the songs are a lot about, like, self-discovery and vulnerability and stuff like that. And the things that you would expect from a pop pianist's first full length record. Nothing seems surprising in content, but the production is great. Her performance is wonderful. And her songwriting is like, it's interesting. It's intricate. She does a lot of cool things melodically. And honestly, I guess I can't get more specific than that, except on songs like She Walks In or is that the right? Yeah. And Swan Song, that show that she can be like fragile and strong and just, oh man, like, it's tough to put into words, but it's just a beautiful record. And I enjoyed every second of it.
Yeah, I'm drawn to the first verse on the track, 15%, where she says, "Drunk on the power of making them laugh, blacked out and knocked out this evening. Slowly it dawns. I'm a pain in the ass. Is everyone happy I'm leaving?"
Yeah, that's so good.
Oh, I love it. Love it, love it, love it. It's amazing to see someone who's able to do anything. Like, I would just roll up into a ball if stricken with what she has been. But I mean, that's part of the strength of someone like her, who I'm assuming doesn't feel that she was stricken with anything.
I mean, she's never known life without that condition. So
she goes out and does her thing, and man, beautiful, beautiful stuff.
So since you are familiar and you know the lyrics, I'm assuming you enjoyed this record as well. Did it make your cut?
It did not make my cut, and perhaps it should have. Perhaps it should have. I actually am kind of earmarking myself to go back and watch her Black Swan performance from Jimmy Kimmel just about a week ago, to familiarize myself with the performance as well as the artist. But I am going to kick my top 3 off with an artist that, or band, I should say, that I do have some familiarity with. And it isn't a ton of familiarity. It's only just one album besides the most recent one. But I came to know of this band back in 2020. They'd released a beautiful album and actually a companion podcast to the album, which, who does that? That's really, really cool. The English outfit Tongue, back in 2020, put out Tongue Presents Dead Club, which was an album about grieving and mourning in all of its painful, beautiful, gut-wrenching forms. And it was exactly the album that I needed in the ever-present quagmire of the early days of the COVID pandemic. Fast forward just over 4 years, and we have an album that is not nearly as heavy, at least not on the surface, but every bit as good. that album was Love You All Over Again. It's kind of folky in parts. It's kind of electronic-y in parts. It is far more lighthearted again, just on the surface. It's jaunty. It's got some more upbeat songs. And just like Dead Club was what I needed in 2020, this is exactly what I needed in 2025. I'm sure there's still talk of death, mainly of the acceptance of the inevitability of death, mostly found in tracks such as Didn't Know Why and especially in the track Laundry. But it all seems a little more happy this time around, more upbeat, less like grieving. And not to say that grieving is a bad thing. Grieving is a very necessary part of the process. But this album read as more of a celebration, and also a celebration of the fact that, we know that this is going to happen. So, let's be okay with it. Let's get a bit of acceptance so we can get on to the fun stuff, basically. It was a really, really cool listen, and I truly enjoyed it.
Nice. That one didn't make my cut, mostly because there were not the whole release, but certain tracks of it that reminded me a little too much of Rusted Root, which I don't like.
That is understandable. I kind of want to listen to Rusted Root now, just to see if I can kind of get the same sort of vibe from it.
Yeah, not the whole thing. Like I did enjoy parts of the record, and I thought like some of the cool experimentation with the layers were cool. But yeah, just certain spots of it, I was like, that tweaked me a little bit. I didn't like that.
It's hard, especially once that kind of burrows its way into your head. It's kind of hard to like get that out. I feel that.
Yeah.
Well, did your number 2 album burrow its way into your head as well?
Quite a bit. And actually a couple of songs from it have made it onto rotation regularly over the last couple of weeks. And that is from FKA Twigs, the 3rd studio record. This album is called Eusexua. I can't say it well. And the title track is every bit as cool as the name suggests. Actually, I don't know if that suggests that it's cool at all, but it was fun to say. Very cool, like digital pop stuff. Quite a bit of a trip hop vibe going on through most of the record. Excellent layers. The lyrics are really cool. And Twig's voice is just, I don't know what it is. I'm drawn to it. It's one of those, it's chill, it's laid back. There's nothing abrasive or it's a very soothing sound, but it's still energized. Like the music is uplifting. It's upbeat. It's fun. I'm not a big fan of the track on the record. I think it's called Childlike Things with Northwest on it. Yeah, it's okay. It's not bad. It doesn't take away from the album, but it's not my favorite track on the record. But the title track, Eusexua, and Keep It, Hold It, Room of Fools, Girl Feels Good. Like there's enough awesome on this record that I don't even have to think twice about putting it on this list. It's maintaining rotation for me. Probably, I mean, unless something coming up here in February dethrones it, I don't see it going away anytime soon.
Nice. Eusexua. Which I wrote a pronunciation note for because I didn't want to fuck it up. It ended up in my honorable mentions.
Right on.
Yeah, everything you said, 100% echo. Girl Feels Good was one of my top tracks. The beat on Drums of Death, which, I mean, you would expect a song called Drums of Death to have a good beat, and it delivered.
Yeah. Cool
ass album. One of those that I felt like, I don't know that I'm cool enough for this album.
I'm definitely not cool enough for the album, but I'll keep listening to it.
For sure. It was a jam. Very good shit.
Cool.
I got some more good shit if you'd like to hear about it.
Always. Let's hear it.
So I got a question for the both of you on the heels of my number 2. And the answer is yes. But the question is, does The Weeknd ever miss? I mean, he does, just like we all do. That's been proven over time. Hurry Up Tomorrow was not in that category of misses, at least not for me. This was it's going to be weird for me to say this, but this was the worst of the trilogy of albums that kind of were loosely comprised in a sort of theme, including After Hours and Dawn FM. I would buy that you could put Dawn FM and Hurry Up Tomorrow. You could maybe give them a tie for number 2. Number 1 is very clear and sorted out. Of course, that being the magnificent After Hours. But don't get it twisted. Even this being the worst of the bunch in terms of the trilogy, this album is still an absolute banger, subsequently filled with absolute bangers. You've got the big hits. I think they were both singles, Sao Paulo and Timeless. You also have some quintessential Weekend tracks in Cry For Me and Open Hearts. Also, Reflections Laughing, which was a sort of ballad with Florence and the Machine and Travis Scott on the same track. Mm-hmm. And it worked. It was unexpected in the best sort of way. This, depending on who you ask or what you read, there may be a shift in the Weeknd's music. This potentially being the last album featuring the alter ego of the album. What exactly that means for the future of the Weeknd music, we don't know. Will he continue to record under the same name? Will he record under his given name or a different name? It's a question mark. But if this is the end of something, then this is a hell of a way for this chapter of the Weeknd to go out.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I put it in my honorable mentions, mostly on the power of the couple of lead tracks. Not all of them. I really do. I enjoyed Cry For Me was really cool, and Sao Paulo is cool. I'm not a fan of Timeless. I don't know what it is. I did some research after. I was like, oh, what makes this? It's a Pharrell Williams track. It's not the Weeknd didn't write that one. So maybe I'm feeling that difference. And then I thought the combination of the Weeknd and Florence and the Machine was really cool, but I did not enjoy Travis Scott's part on that track. So there were just those couple of things that kept me from being like, okay, this is killer. But honorable mentions, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I did wonder that as I was listening, obviously the Weeknd himself being a producer of great renown, how much of this album was produced by him and how much influence and just straight up production did other folks do. If you look at the list of producers, it's vast. I mean, there are crazy. Maybe 2 or 3 dozen people on this list, including the great Swedish sensation Max Martin, which if you scroll down on your playlist, you'll see an entire episode devoted to the man that brought us both Unsung and the Backstreet Boys in a weird way. And The Weeknd as well, back in his earlier days. But yeah, it's, at least I will say, it is impressive with so many producers on this album that most of the tracks still sound signature in terms of this is a Weeknd song. We don't have to wonder who's performing this song. It has the sound. Not all of them, but most of them do.
Yeah, it's a good record. I very much enjoyed it.
You mentioned that ending up on your honorable mentions. What else just barely missed your top 3 this month?
Oh, there's a couple of weird ones that barely missed. I would throw in the band Mo, stylized in all lowercase with a period at the end of it, M-O-E period, Mo. I'm always on the lookout for good stoner rock and stoner metal. This one had a little too much Tull in it for me. There's even some pan flute and Bungle in the Jungle style stuff going on. It's really fun to listen to, but it's inconsistent. But it was still a very fun listen, and I highly recommend it. Pink Sifu out of Cincinnati made a splash on my radar this month. Lyrically, the album is a train wreck, but it's fun. It is a fun album, not something that you can really sink your teeth into and really get behind, content wise, which if you don't need that in your hip hop, by all means, enjoy the Pink Sifu record. I wanted something a little bit more. It was still fun. And then I would say, let's see. The Weather Station dropped an album this month. It's called Humanhood. and it's beautiful. It is everything you want from a weather station record. It's easy to listen to, very strong lyrically, melodically. It's gorgeous and highly worth the listen. Tremonti dropped an album, and there's that. And then new metalcore band Paleface Swiss dropped something that was a lot of fun. Not something I think will stay in my rotation much beyond this recording, but crunchy, loud, and interesting. So like it's sort of a deathcore and new metalcore hybrid thing that they're doing, where there's a little bit of electronica going on and a little bit of hip hop going on, but mostly it's just volume. It is an in your face album. A little bit of experimentation with different types of metal, which makes it fun.
Very cool.
Yeah. How about you? What made your almost list?
So talked about Eusexua already from FKA Twigs. Also JoJo with her latest NGL. And I'm not going to lie, this is solid dance adjacent R&B. It won't blow anything else out of the water that's on my list, but it certainly holds its own. Bonnie Prince Billy and the Purple Bird, a little bit of a homer pick for me because I do love me some Bonnie Prince Billy. If you're asking my opinion, I'm just an ordinary man, which is subsequently both how this album starts and how I feel about it as someone reviewing it, because I am an ordinary man and I did love every bit of the guitar and a little bit more too. It's not as acoustic as most Bonnie Prince Billy albums that you would come to know, but still absolutely wonderful. And then Matt Berry, who I had to take a look at and make sure I got the right Matt, because there are apparently a lot of English actors named Matt. So this is not Matt Lucas, the dude from The Great British Bake Off. This is not Matt Smith, the dude from Doctor Who and most recently House of the Dragon. This is Matt Berry, the dude from What We Do in the Shadows and apparently Moomin Valley. Who knew? This is his 13th studio album, so I have missed a lot of Matt Berry music over the years. This one called Herd Noises. Kind of lightly psychedelic rock, I guess, is the best way that I could describe it. Very nice listen. Very nice listen. I think that's a good description for it. Again, not anything that would blow me away, but I wasn't going to turn it up, but I wasn't going to turn it off either. It was a good album.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one too. It was my background music while I was cleaning the garage, and it was perfectly acceptable for that. It kept me. It was light. It was a light psychedelic record. It was fun. He's a better. Nope, not going to say better actor because he plays the same character in everything, but he is a more. I would rather watch him on screen than listen to an album. Let's put it that way.
That's fair. That is super fair.
I'm a big fan of What We Do in the Shadows, and it's hard to see him as anything else. Although his musical performances on An Evening with Beverly Luff Lynn, where he co-starred opposite Craig Robinson in a largely silent role. It's such a weird movie. I can't recommend it at all.
and somehow this is the most glowing endorsement you could ever give it.
Yeah, I know.
I'm so in.
It's almost like it's a movie, but it's not. Like it's kind of there. But the album was more than listenable, just not my favorite production of his.
Yeah, that's it seems like the kind of role that would probably be up his alley if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what is. Nope, I'm going to do a different segue there. Let's discuss your number one album of the month.
I have a feeling, based on what you have in your honorable mentions and what we've both talked about so far, that we have the same number one album.
Ooh, I'm not sure, but it's possible.
Yeah, it would not surprise me at all. So I'm going to go brief on it, but descriptive, I think. Being probably the most experimental and introspective of this artist's music. It is you're going to say it's the same thing, isn't it?
I'm still not sure.
Okay. Blending elements of jazz, hip hop, and psychedelia. It's the posthumous release from Mac Miller. It's Balloonerism. Seriously, like themes, lyrically, it deals with like existentialism and love and self-discovery, but also sometimes it's just fucking weird. Calling to mind some of the more like esoteric tracks from artists like Del the Funky Homo Sapien, but also like really digging into some of the weird production stuff that he liked to tweak with. I'm thinking specifically of the track he did with SZA on the album that is like it's like 2.5 minutes of almost nothing, and then SZA's there for like a minute, and then there's more weird, and I love it. Like I'm here for all of it. He's barely there. Mac's just a producer on that one. But then also like having a later track like Funny Papers where he just gets really real with us about everything that he's feeling and everything that he's doing. And I was enthralled with every track on this record, from Funny Papers and Excelsior to what was one of the, Deborah Downer. Like it's such a really cool and unexpected release. Like I know some of this stuff had been like unfinished and released in the past, like leaked, but it didn't feel unfinished to me. It felt full. It felt produced. I didn't actually do any research for this. I don't know who finished this production for him. I'm sure you did a little better job of that than I did. No, you didn't either. Just enjoying the record for what it is. It's a beautiful album.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those times that like I didn't know what your number one album was going to be, so this definitely wasn't orchestrated at all. But you were so much more eloquent with how you described it, and this album absolutely doesn't even just deserve, but it demands that sort of elegance when discussing it. So thank you for going first and making sure I didn't sound like too much of an idiot when I talked about what, of course, is also my number one album of the month.
Well, add to it. What else you got to say about it?
So I'm just going through my notes and like noting things that you didn't mention, and there's not a lot on this. I think you hit all the high notes. I will mention a couple of other tracks that I dug, including $5 Pony Rides. When you start listening to it, listen to the bass line. You will know immediately whose fingers those are that are hitting those strings. It is iconic in every way. The song itself is great, but just hearing that thunder bass line is just chef's kiss, absolute chef's kiss. I'm liked Shangri-La more for the flow than the track itself. Same with Do You Have a Destination? Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of, well, I wouldn't even say a lot, but some of these tracks were more of a methodical style, which fit the songs and the album perfectly, I might add. But also showing the versatility were those other tracks where, they were more traditional in terms of the flow, more traditional in terms of the delivery. And those were every bit as great. And then on a, I guess, more sobering note, you mentioned this being a posthumous album. I guess not a sobering note because as we talked about with my number 3 album, sometimes we celebrate. Sometimes we're past the mourning and the grieving and we're celebrating. So everyone who's listening to this right now, we just barely missed, I think it was last month around this time. It'll be exactly a month prior when you do hear this, would have been Mac Miller's birthday. So 33rd birthday, if I'm counting correctly. So yeah, wish him a silent, belated happy birthday while you jam out to the amazing album that is Balloonerism.
And I just did a quick search on the record to see who did produce everything, and the main producer, although Thundercat did produce a couple, the producer on this album is listed as Larry Fisherman, who is also Mac Miller. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. There was one other point that I think that I'm making correctly. Yes, there was another track that we didn't talk about called Transformations, which features an artist called Delusional Thomas, which was actually the title of a mixtape. And you can already guess, made by our guy Mac Miller. So we got layers here. We got alter egos. It's cool as hell.
Yeah, very cool. Definitely a weird record. Like if you are looking for a straightforward hip hop album, this ain't it. No. But if you're looking for something that will maybe challenge your expectations of what a modern hip hop record can sound like, you're not going to find anything better. It's so well done.
Stupendous album. Stupendous. Yeah, that that really doesn't lend its way to segues, but I'm going to try it here, Dan. We went through our first albums of the year, And it is your turn to step into the batter's box and swing the bat in the general direction of the pitching mound.
I mean, you're pretty much all the way there. I'll take it.
Yes. It only took me 3 years, but we got here.
I mean, we're getting there, but yeah, it's interesting to see all that stuff that you guys catch on, and I'll move into a very similar area, but obviously, more than likely a month behind. But I'll do it with start with my honorable mention of the month, and that is Lola Young's "Messy," because this is such a well written track. And look, if we're getting a revival of the minimal early aughts alt rock scene, and I'm here for it, then we'll just put this song at the front of the pack.
Cool.
Very nice. Yeah, that was one that I unfortunately missed, but yeah, I'm here for everything you said. I'm excited to take a listen.
Yeah, I just made a note of it because I didn't catch that one either.
I want to say she was on one of the late shows in the last couple of days. It'd be worth checking out the live shot too. But to move on, and as I mentioned, there really can't be much of a surprise to who the top 3 is comprised of this month, I would hope. But if you need to spell it out for you, not a problem. December was a long time ago.
Feels like it.
So there's that. However, just a few days ago, you caught this track as the opening song in the bomb track of a Super Bowl halftime show. It is the lead single off of GNX. It debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It is Squabble Up. Really not a whole lot to say about Kendrick here. He is phenomenal on a track where he seemingly decided that he's no longer going to focus on Drake, at least after the Super Bowl. Instead, he just wants all the smoke. He is so tight. His verses full of metaphor, full of storytelling, and then they're backed up by an equally tight and powerful beat. And just like Not Like Us, he managed to work a killer earworm into his, well, I mean, it's tough to describe, like into a morality tale, calling the world out song. And there's a ton packed into 2 minutes 40 here.
He likes to do that.
He really does. He's really good at it.
Yeah. Super dense. Like you said, the halftime show, if you missed it, please go back and watch it and listen to it and revel in it. Go back and listen to our show as well, where we talk about the best Super Bowl halftime shows that were not Kendrick Lamar's. His, I would have to guess, would have made our top 4 if we were to do that episode again today.
Yes, no doubt.
Seems reasonable.
But speaking of, can I point something out real quick? Because obviously the whole, like, the heart of that show was waiting. We were all waiting for him to get to Not Like Us. Mm-hmm. And he even teased it. And then when he finally did, he looked directly into 130 million homes with a giant grin on his face to say, "Hey, Drake." And that right there is the moment the NFL used to promote on its TikTok page.
Oh my gosh. It's like we all knew it was coming, but there was enough that I started to think like maybe he's not going to do it. Maybe. And then the beat came in. I was like, yeah, well done. Well played, Kendrick.
You know what's interesting about that moment? We're like, oh, he's not going to do it because it started. Mm-hmm. And then what he did was bring in SZA and play the number 2 track of the month, because he did the tease and then went into Luther.
So smooth, so fucking smooth.
And it was the absolute moment that, you know, the show's lights came down a bit and we went full R&B for a few moments. And look, it's one of the more chill tracks off of GNX, and that's not and that's not to say that there's a ton of interesting things going on in this, or that there's not a ton of interesting things going on in this beautiful duet. It may, in fact, be the smoothest song on the record, a point where I was kind of blown away because the harmonies are absolutely on point. But SZA just takes this song over when she comes in about halfway through. Not that you'd expect anything less from her, and her incredible voice just lends further emotional depth to the bars that Kendrick is throwing out, adding the soul into a soul track. I feel like this is a cop-out, but you've got to go listen to it to get the full experience of what I'm trying and failing to describe. Like, if it's not clear, I was a big fan of GNX, and obviously a big fan of the halftime show as well.
Yeah.
Zero arguments. I mean, the whole album ended up on my top 3 in November. Or well, I guess it would have been.
It would have been
November.
Yeah, November's
December.
list. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it came out in I thought it came out in December when we didn't do a show.
It came out in November.
Yeah, it was late November. But I mean, this jam was like so many other Luther Vandross songs that you could have picked to sample for this song. No one at all would have went with If This World Were Mine. But that's why it's brilliant. That's why the song is brilliant. That's why the production is brilliant too. I think a lot of that falls in Soundwave Slap and Jack Antonoff too.
Yeah, I think he's kind of a forgotten piece of this puzzle on the record, and because you're like, wait, okay, not the body of work you'd expect out of him, but maybe that's me.
No, I'm with you. I'm here for it.
You know what I'm here for?
I guess you got to be for the opposite end of the list here, too, don't you?
Yeah.
All right. Well, then let me start off with a quick dishonorable mention, and it goes to Cody Johnson and Carrie Underwood and their duet "I'm Gonna Love You." And sure, that sentiment is quite nice, but the song that's expressing it is just flat and restless to where you would totally question whether or not that's actually true what they're saying. Do I love you? But I like, I'm going to write you a love song, but I'm going to sound bored as hell singing it.
You know, sometimes love is like that. Sometimes it's just very disinterested and indifferent. That's all right.
Here's I'm not gonna say anything, but I will. My brain immediately went to, and this might be the most obscure quote that we've thrown out on this show. But let's go all the way, throw it back to Lenny and the Squig Tones, who in a song once said, "Even true love can be boring night after night."
I love that. No pun intended. I do love that.
I
Lenny
don't know
and the Squig Tones.
Don't know how I feel, but hopefully somebody else got that one.
Oh my God.
And they wrote far better songs than I think sit at 24, 25, and 26. So let's go there. 24. Oof. Let me throw out a name that I definitely didn't expect to be throwing out here. LiAngelo Ball is the one Ball who has yet to make it to the association. But clearly the G League isn't taking up all of his time, as evidenced by his debut single as Jello, Tweaker. This is the archetype of a meme song, okay? Like, okay, he's got a decent sing-song flow, but there's something in the frequently doubled-up vocals that just does not work. I mean, it's better during the hook because it kind of has like the feel of some 90s Midwest sound in there. But in the verses, it's slightly jarring. Like the backing vocal track wasn't quite lined up, but nobody said anything and they just let it go out the door like that. There's also another voice mixed in the background, both too quiet to be much of anything, but just loud enough to be a distraction. And at the same time, just randomly. Like I'm not sure if it was supposed to riff on certain phrases because it just felt like it kind of came in whenever the hell someone felt like dropping it in. I'm not going to try to dive into why Jello is trying to cosplay as one of the hot boys here either, but that's in there too. But look, at the end of the day, the chorus is catchy, which is why it's gotten traction on social, but it's not great.
Okay.
Yeah, I did not really enjoy the vocal stylings of Jello. I did not enjoy the beat on that song. Everything else was fine.
I didn't listen to it.
You didn't miss much.
You didn't miss much.
That's what I'm getting.
Yeah. I don't remember anything else. I don't. It exists. And like I said, I'm sure it'll be, the sample on multiple videos that you might multiple shorts you might come across for like a month or two, and then it'll go away and be completely forgotten. Much Very like true. The man's basketball career.
And still, yet there are 2 songs worse.
Yeah, right. Like
you couldn't. Two artists couldn't do better than an NBA player.
That's not an NBA G leaguer.
A G leaguer, yes, yeah.
G leaguer. He hasn't made it up, and I think that might be worse because, okay. So remember when y'all asked me what the month was like, and my response was, "It's fine."
Yeah.
The perfect example of that comes in at number 25 because this guy is becoming the new Adam Levine, in that he won't go away long enough to be missed, and he'll continue to put out mediocre pop. It's Morgan Wallen with Smile. I saw you bracing for where I was going as soon as I said Adam Levine.
Well, you said that. I'm like, I know who this is. And then you said pop, and I'm like, oh, thank God it's not. Oh, it is pop. He does do pop. God damn it.
He does. He does. And it's here, and that's the best way I could describe it. This would be pop country submission for the minimalist pop movement that peaked in 2013. It's an acoustic guitar, Wallen, and then what I imagine is a vocal reproducer set to church choir, but limited to 3-note runs. Like someone just bought the demo for it, and that's all we can do is just 3 notes of ahs, which is frustrating because I think Wallen actually has an interesting lyrical idea. Using the heartbreak of seeing a glimmer of hope in an otherwise wasteland of a relationship, something that is on the verge of utter collapse, but then a little reminder that things were once good, and that will be greatly missed when everything finally completely crumbles. So why is it down here if I like the thread that was running through the song so much? Because I fell asleep 3 times trying to write that summary listening to the track. I mean, Wallen apparently decided that he had done too good a job in the songwriting side. There's too much raw emotion in this one, boys. We got to turn literally everything down to balance that out. It was good to see him continuing the narrative, which of the 2 previous singles, but I'm the Problem might come out all right as something as a concept album, maybe. But the heartfelt expression of pain and longing is as muted and as boring as that time Justin Bieber tried to do something similar and just whined for a verse and then made a noise like a foghorn being punched in the throat.
I'm trying to think of which noise that is. If
Bieber
that's
is still
from
catching
Sorry,
strays for Lonely.
That was the other one.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out. Or girlfriend, or a boyfriend rather, or girlfriend, whichever friend it is.
All the
with
friends.
like the dolphin sample at the beginning. Less than ideal. Morgan Wallen also less than ideal. I might
Less
add.
than ideal.
Yeah, that's sort of where I'm at. Like I honestly, you said the lyrical thread of this song was interesting, and I thought, in a Morgan Wallen song?
I know.
I can't do it. You already you put more into that than I would have been able to muster.
That's sort of what made it what killed the song is there's some solid writing in it. That's the problem. And you wasted that writing on such a nothing of a track that I'm like, this is the best you could do? There are 6 writers on this track. That's the best the 6 of you could come up with to orchestrate this? Come on now.
Well, I appreciate your review of it because without it, I mean, I will never know.
Glad. I appreciate your honesty in this case.
Yeah, the unfortunate part about this track is that it is not a one-off. It's actually the 4th single from the upcoming album, which is scheduled to be released sometime this year. So, Jay, you and I are going to have some work to do in a few months. I am going to have some work to do.
You go right ahead.
He's going to take this one for the team because the worst part about this is it's 4 singles without a release date.
Yes.
So you know what that means?
Double album.
Double album, boys.
God damn it. Not again.
Listen,
we can't do it, Morgan.
I will backtrack and do a review of the Kane Brown record that dropped in January before I look forward to a Morgan Wallen record.
Oh, in a heartbeat. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, the list of things that I would do before looking forward to a Morgan Wallen record is long and indistinguished, but I got nothing.
I'm hearing the prelude to a Dr. Coxian style rant.
Oh man, I wish I had one for him. The best I could do is call him Morgana. I don't know. That's what I got.
More like here is a list of all of the things I care about more than Morgan Wallen.
God,
Oh
we'd be
yes,
here for so long.
Everything, and Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. How dare he? But only a song that recalls the utter garbage attempt at being a true romantic of Drake on Work could find its way to the bottom of the barrel. So much so that in the process of doing this write-up, I went back and docked the track 5 points because I reread the lyrics over and over again. And I'm just like, oh boy. So for the line, which is 13 seconds into this goddamn thing, by the way. Other girls, fuck them. I'd rather touch myself to you than fuck them. Thanks, but no thanks, Jack Harlow, for that, or hello, Miss Johnson.
Of course it's Jack Harlow. I don't know why I wondered. Like, I wonder who would sing some shit like that.
You know what? Maybe if you had a twin, I would still choose you. Wasn't that bad after all.
Can they both be at the bottom?
Yes.
Can we dock them both 5 points in perpetuity?
Yes.
God damn it.
God, I'm looking at more of these. Sorry, you go ahead and do your rant first, and then I will.
Okay. I'll get back. We'll put a pin in that. We'll come back to you. Because I have to point out that Jack Harlow continues to be the most uninteresting pop rapper in the game. And that includes the guy that did the Rick Astley rework, whose name I've already forgotten. And again, also frustrating because this is actually a really good beat. It's got some salsa and some samba influences in there, and it is utterly wasted on this song. I mean, sure, Harlow has flow. I don't think that part's ever really been denied. But this attempt to win over someone's mother, that's the basis of the chorus. Okay. You sit and think about that, actually. Sit and think about that. I'm trying to win mom over. And then you go back and think about the opening line. And then you think about the mother. And then you think about that opening line. Then tie in when he takes the phone from his girl to make his pitch directly to mama and asks, was it you that gave the eyes to her that I be lost in? And before I challenge you to diagram that sentence, instead ask yourself, why, Jack, why did you decide to use a Leisure Suit Larry level pickup line, but then try to twist it around in an attempt to charm a mother who's also already heard about your masturbatory fantasies and a little later on wanting to increase the population with her daughter, which I would hope at least by the time you got there, you'd already won mother over by then? Unless you wanted to go full on Miss Jackson, which is what I thought he was ripping off upon the first listen. Harlow continues to confound because he puts out material which sounds great and he might have the talent to succeed, but insists on turning out the laziest written pop rap that is just just offensive enough to need an explicit version, but not enough to make anything that he's doing interesting. And in a month that's led by an artist that won a goddamn Pulitzer Prize for his writing, this week's sauce deserves to be disposed in 20 seconds. Insert masturbatory joke here. And that was somehow better, a better written line.
Yeah, far better. I'm reading this nonsense, and as you pointed out, right up to the point where you're like, diagram that sentence, because this makes no you talk about how you mentioned how he has a little bit of flow, like when he's spitting lyrics, like you don't really think twice about what those lyrics might be. But I feel like a key component of flow is that the words go in an order where they make some sense. And he's shoehorning these words into this sentence in any goddamn order he feels like. Yeah. Sometimes I think to you, I might as well be Mountain Dew. What the fuck does that mean?
I want us, the three of us, and listeners, if you want to participate in this, great. I want to just absolutely bombard genius.com with the most nonsensical descriptions and definitions of what that specific lyric might mean. because they're all going to be more correct than whatever the fuck he was thinking at the time.
Well, my only response to question to that line is, you're giving her type 1?
We got a clubhouse leader already, folks.
How does that even work?
Also, my next favorite line in the song is the one where he propositions her, because there's no other way to mistake the way this is said, with rhyming a word with a homophone. It's not a rhyme, it's a homophone, in the worst pickup line ever written. Let's go to Nice and give your sister a niece.
I hate to admit I did like that line.
What is wrong with you?
Producer Nikki will be very firmly in your court. That is one of her absolute lyrical pet peeves, is either rhyming a word with the same word or with a homophone. But yeah, you don't really hear references to Nice in many rap songs. So
fine, let's follow it up with the next line and say, I'm trying to make the population increase. I'm trying to see you in Dece.
Okay, it goes downhill quick. I'm not gonna lie.
It's like, never mind. You handed out the praise too soon.
I should have read just a little bit further.
Okay, but like, I've never heard anyone shorten indecent for that purpose. So it's not even a thing. Like you said, you're just doing it with a size 86 shoehorn. And it's still not working.
It's fine. He also has this inflated sense of himself, which comes with the territory, I'm sure, of being that popular of an artist. But apparently, the entirety of humanity is on the line in his mind, as he's pressed out, trying to make you mine for the sake of humankind. My rhyme just now, better.
Zero arguments.
Nope. And however, if that is the case, fuck it. Let's just pack it in as a species, dude. That's it. We should be done and hand this place over to somebody better.
Yeah. If Jack Harlow's the best we got, then our time has come and gone.
I mean, clearly you haven't seen his version of White Men Can't Jump.
Oh my God, that's right. That was a thing that happened.
You're
Jesus
welcome.
fuck.
Who allowed that? No one asked us. We would not have allowed that.
Why, when that first hit the industry news, did Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes just not go on a frenzy of punching everyone involved? Like, every studio head who took a meeting for that production deserved a fist to each side of the jaw.
Yeah.
It's the only way to learn. Well, what did you learn since we got to the bottom? What did you learn was the best song of the month according to your ears?
Well, I'll just speed through this because we spent so much time shitting on Jack Harlow. We need to get this done in a timely fashion. But with the foreshadowing left you back a little bit there, it should not come as any surprises to who is the top track of the month. And he is not alone. And he is not the feature artist here. Off the deluxe version of SOS called Lana, the best song of January is SZA featuring Kendrick Lamar and 30 for 30. I mean, you can't deny these two artists have tremendous chemistry, and it comes through in absolutely all their work. So why this song ahead of Luther? Well, I really like the nostalgic tone that gets set right at the top with that Bobby DeBarge sample. Though Luther has that similar feel, but there's a different type of soul on display. And even through the braggadocious moments, SZA is also working through some vulnerability and is having a conversation with Kendrick in the process there. The back and forth between the two of them becomes its own element in the production, which steps back a bit and actually stays relatively simple to allow that interplay between the two to be the element that paces the song. It generates the rising and falling action. It drives the dynamics. They're both on fire, just more of a low smoldering blaze that lasts far longer into the night than the track's 4:38 runtime.
There's a word that comes to mind, and that word is subtlety. It's the difference between what SZA and Kendrick have and what Jack Harlow doesn't have. Because sometimes you don't have to explicitly spell it out in order to get your point across. And the two of them, like you said, their chemistry just lends to that brilliantly again and again and again.
Word.
I know they basically have pretty much done an entire album's worth of material, but if they decided to do a project that was specifically just the two of them doing a concept album, it would be amazing.
Can you actually imagine? Like, whew.
I'd like to.
Here's the thing. I can imagine it.
No, sure.
But I think what actually comes out of it would be better than what I imagined.
Definitely.
Yeah, I know this is a popular podcast. I'm sure that both SZA and K-Dot are listening as we speak. Take our words to heart, because we're not the only ones that want more of the magic that y'all bring, both singularly and as a cohesive unit.
Please, thank you.
I think with that, January in the books, boys.
I think so too.
Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah, it was a long time coming, but it doesn't end here. We've got plenty of stuff coming down the pike. What do we got? We've got one song coming up next month or next week. Not the usual one song sort of vibe.
Oh,
It's
God damn it.
the reverse one song. It'll be fun. We're gonna hate it. Y'all will enjoy it. It'll be great.
I think Dan will hate it more than us.
I would tend to agree. We've got some coverlutions coming back your way yet again. We have a brand new episode type debuting in March as well. And all kinds of fun stuff kind of peppered in there. So make sure you stick around, not in this episode because it's almost done, but stick around for future episodes where you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and a new social media account on Blue Sky that we just launched. It's going to be at Fairly KickAss across the board there, as it always has been. At Fairly KickAss will get you to us, fairlykickass.com for your website, for all of your ride-along playlists, as always, fairlykickass@gmail.com for email correspondence that will get you directly to all three of us. Or to actually, no, that's it. We don't have any assistants. We're not that kind of podcast. We don't have staff. We are the staff. And wherever you get your podcasts, wherever you're listening right now is where you can listen to every episode of the Fairly Kick-Ass podcast. More episodes on Spotify than anywhere else. It's a long story, but suffice it to say, we do have some older stuff there. So if you want the full Kick-Ass experience, Spotify is the place to go. But we have plenty of stuff all over the map. So pick your poison and check us out.
Our relationship status with Spotify is complicated.
More than the listeners have any idea. Holy shit.
Hey, I wasn't expecting that one night that Spotify was standing in the driveway with the boombox playing Peter Gabriel.
I mean, I feel like it would have been much better if it had been In Your Eyes, but they went with Salisbury Hill. It made no sense.
I know, it was really confusing. Definitely mixed messaging, my guy. Mixed messaging.
I mean, at least it wasn't waiting for the big one. We're done. We're so done.
Penis joke.